Hi, friends. Welcome to Reading. Today, we're going to hop back into our story, Who Really Created Democracy? But before we begin, it's really important as readers to activate our reading brains. One way that we do that when we're reading a story that follows a plot line is to go through the plot and remember where we were. So, a couple of days ago, we were introduced to the characters and the setting, and that's where we're going to start today. We need to go back and remember our two sets of characters and where they're living at this point. We were first introduced to the American colonists, and we know that they're living in the 13 American colonies. I've already explained to you that this is really the United States. It's just that it's a long time ago. We don't have 50 states at this point. We only have 13 American colonies. The time period is the 1770s, and this is about 250 years ago. Our other set of characters are the ancient Greeks. We know that the setting for them is Athens, and that the time period is about the 5th and 4th centuries BC. That's a long time ago. In fact, it's about 2,500 years ago. So when we think about our ancient Greeks, they tried to set up a democracy first. And then thousands of years later, the American colonists tried to set up a democracy again. Now let's go to the problem. The problem in the story was what we explored yesterday. We know that both sets of characters have to pay taxes to very rich and wealthy leaders, and we know that they don't like that. We know that both sets of characters don't have a voice in creating their own laws, and they want that desperately. And we also know that both sets of characters want a government that allows people to choose their own leaders and create their own laws. So this is really about a democracy. A democracy would offer all those things to these people. So what are our characters motivated to do about this? Motivation is when you have a spark or you have something deep inside you that says, all right, there's a problem, but I really want to solve this problem. Well, yesterday we learned that the leaders of each place are trying to avoid war. Sometimes war is the only way to solve a problem, and it's a sad way to do it. But if we can avoid it, that's the best way to go about it. For our Athenians that live in Athens, the way that the problem for them is trying to be solved right now is that the wealthy rulers ask Solon to lead the government. So they go to Solon because we know that he was kind of a commoner, even though he was born to wealthy parents. And the people in Athens really respected him. So the first thing he did to try and solve the problem of going to war was say to the poor people and the rest of the people that lived in Athens, you know what? Let's stop slavery. No longer will you have to sell your relatives to get money to pay to the wealthy people. And the Athenians liked that. And the other thing he did was to say, and if anyone is a slave right now, you don't have to stay with the people who own you. You're going to go back to your family. And the Athenians like that too. So those were two things that made Solon a very popular leader. In our story of the colonists, though, we have Jefferson, Franklin, and Adams. And yesterday when we left them, they were writing a letter to King George, and they were trying to solve the problem of being treated unfairly. So they wrote to King George and they said, hey, we don't like that you're taxing stuff and that you're not giving us a say in the vote. We want to be able to vote too. And rather than King George saying, okay, let's try to solve that problem, he got angrier. And he said, nope, not going to do it. And instead he sent soldiers to the American colonies to sort of guard and police the colonists. And boy, they didn't like that. So we left off there yesterday, and we know that the colonists are in the very beginning of a war. Somebody fired the first shot, and now we're to battling it out. Fighting in Athens. The situation has grown extremely dangerous in Athens. People battle for control of the city. Solon's government cannot survive. In 561 BC, a rich, powerful man named, and I want to make sure I get this right, it's a difficult name for me to pronounce, Pisistratus. Pisistratus brings soldiers to Athens. He takes control of the government. So how does he take control of the government? Pisistratus brings soldiers to Athens. Solon is old and weak. So Solon is old and weak and he can't fight back. But he does warn that Pisistratus is a tyrant. Friends, go down below to the caption. We have vocabulary there. It says a tyrant is someone who rules in a cruel, and cruel means mean, way. So what do we know about Pisistratus? We know he's a cruel and mean leader. And we know that Solon tries to warn the people and say that. But he's old and weak and he's having difficulty. Okay, I'm going to hop back into the story right here. But Pisistratus tells the people he was chosen by the god Athena. So he goes out and he says, hey, you know, there's this god named Athena, and you're going to get in big trouble from this god if you don't just accept me as your leader. And so the people of Athens agree to let him rule. Pisistratus does many good things for Athens. He increases trade to the city. That's a good thing. He also has channels built to bring water to Athens. Well, that seems pretty good if you're thirsty every day and you just want to get a quick drink of water. But here's the big problem again. The people have no control over what Pisistratus does. He makes all the laws and rules the government. In 527 BC, Pisistratus dies. His son, Hippias, takes control. Hippias is a cruel leader. So now we have another cruel leader. The father is a cruel leader and his son is a cruel leader. He taxes the people for births and deaths. So if you have a baby, you have to pay taxes. If you die, you have to pay taxes. It's a tax that few can afford. So friends, the people can't even afford to pay this tax. In 508 BC, the aristocrats hire an army to remove Hippias from power. When he flees, that means when he runs away, another tyrant called Isagoras takes his place. The fighting continues until the aristocrats remove him from office too. So in Athens, so far we know there have been a lot of cruel leaders who are not taking very good care of the Athenians. Now it is 507 BC. Athens leaders ask Cleisthenes to rebuild the government. Cleisthenes has helped defeat Hippias, and he has ideas for a new government. The people hope Cleisthenes' new government will give them a say in how they ruled. But there is a chance that their new ruler will be another terrible tyrant. I want to read this one more time because we're about to leave off here. It's now 507 BC. Athens leaders ask I have a tough time with this name, friends, but I'm going to work on it. Cleisthenes to rebuild the government. Cleisthenes had helped defeat Hippias, and he has ideas for a new government. The people hope Cleisthenes' new government will give them a say in how they're ruled. But there is a chance that their new ruler will be another terrible tyrant. And then we see a sculpture of Cleisthenes. I'm going to say that 2 times to try and get it in my brain. Cleisthenes, Cleisthenes, Cleisthenes. I said it 3. Okay, moving along. Fighting in the colonies. And I'm going to show you something I noticed. Typically, when we go to the colonists, we see that outlined in blue. I'm not sure why it ended up this way, but maybe we can make some hypothesis later on and sort of figure out, was it a mistake that they made, or did they have something in mind when they left this in red? Because we know that when we see something bordered in red, usually we're talking about the Athenians. But friends, we're talking about the colonists right now. American colonists know what a tyrant's rule is like, and they are willing to fight against it. But winning the war against King George III is going to be hard, if not impossible. Most colonists are not trained soldiers, and they're fighting one of the best militaries in the world. So King George's soldiers are highly trained. They learn how to shoot their weapons. They know how to fight Boy, this is going to be a tough war because in the colonies, we have people that have never really learned how to fight a war. During the war, the Continental Congress forms a set of rules for the colonies to follow. The Articles of Confederation give individual states a lot of power. In fact, it's almost like there are 13 different countries at this point. The Revolutionary War is a long, bloody war. Thousands of fighters lose their lives. But then, friends, finally, on October 19th, 1781, the ending scenes of the war unfold. So here's how that war ends. Britain's general, Charles Cornwallis, surrenders to General George Washington. And we know Washington was our first president. The impossible has just become possible. A ragtag, that means a not very together army, has defeated the most powerful nation in the world. So the colonists defeated the soldiers of King George's army. Now, in 1787, the colonies are independent, and that's why we celebrate Independence Day. This is when the United States became independent or separated from Great Britain. But they are struggling to keep the new country together. Each state has its own laws and money. So if you think about this, if I travel to any state now, right now, the money is all the same. But back at this time, the states kind of had all their own powers, their own rules, their own laws, and their own kind of money. Hopping back into the story, and the states are taxing citizens to pay huge war debts. So how are they paying for the war? They're back to taxing citizens again. Many people lose their land because they can't pay the taxes. It's clear the Articles of Confederation aren't working. The Articles created a Congress for the country, but it can do very little. And the American people don't even vote for members of Congress. So again, the people don't have a vote. The state governments choose who will serve. This isn't what the colonists fought for. They want a government that is chosen by the people. Some leaders wonder, did the ancient Greeks have this much trouble? And down below we see the battle at Guilford Courthouse. Tomorrow, friends, we start on making democracies. Your job now is to go in and answer the quiz questions for today.